Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Hey there!
Today is Wednesday, March 4th, 2026, and we actually have a uniquely layered mission for you today.
We really do.
Because we're exploring a brand new release that, well, it actually functions as a literal time capsule.
Right.
Today's Deep Dive is a completely spoiler-free exploration of the debut novella, My Beautiful Device, Volume 1 Stasis, by Gianda Monique.
And, the stack of source materials we're working from today gives us such a rich foundation for this. We've got the official 2026 press release, an incredibly detailed author bio, this fascinating archive of YouTube logs, and, of course, the full text of the first edition novella itself.
Yeah, and we even have the cover art in the stack today.
Oh, the cover art is stunning.
It really is. It perfectly sets the tone. There's this striking, transparent, robotic hand.
Laced with all that glowing circuitry.
Exactly. Resting on this mechanical, neon-lit base. It's just a great visual anchor for everything we are about to get into.
The cover alone tells you so much about the world we're stepping into.
So our mission today is to explore this book, and it's explicitly billed to you as an anti-algorithm novel for analog revivalists.
Which is quite the title.
Right. We're going to examine its origins as a pre-AI 2020 artifact, analyze the dystopian setting known as the timeless time, and look at how it brilliantly uses the concept of building a custom robot as a metaphor for recovering from severe narcissistic abuse.
It's a heavy, beautiful metaphor.
It really is.
Right.
Okay, let's unpack this because I want to start with the timeline. The publication history is highly unusual.
Very.
The novella is publishing today in 2026, but it is categorized as an original human transmission. How does the text define that term?
So that phrase is basically the key to understanding the entire format of the novella. Original human transmission means it's not a retrospective piece written from our current 2026 vantage point looking backward.
Okay.
It is a literal, unedited transcription of a serialized audio project that Gianda Monique recorded and uploaded to YouTube during the global lockdowns of 2020. Yeah, it was captured in medias res. The author was documenting a moment in time while actively living inside of it.
So it preserves the atmosphere.
Exactly. The atmosphere, the pacing, the specific anxieties of that era, all without the filter of hindsight.
So you, as the reader, are experiencing a direct archival transfer from that specific year.
Right. And what's fascinating here is why this matters to you, the listener, right now in the context of our current media landscape.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, let's be real, we are fully entrenched in the 2026 generative AI boom.
Right.
Almost every piece of digital media we consume today prompts that underlying question of, did a human actually create this?
Always.
So by releasing this date-stamped 2020 archive exactly as it was originally recorded, the novella provides a raw, pre-AI baseline of purely human expression.
It's untouched.
Untouched. It functions as a prophecy from the past. It examines technology, human agency, and how the two intersect, recorded just before the digital noise of synthetic generation became our daily reality.
And looking at the author's biography, you can really see how Gianda Monique was uniquely positioned to capture that specific intersection.
Oh, completely. Her background is wild.
It really is. The materials show this deep immersion in both the earliest days of digital media and then also highly vulnerable analog art. Like she was a content creator for mp3.com and eMusic before the very first .com crash.
Which is ancient internet history at this point.
Truly. She co-produced some of the internet's earliest podcasts. And her academic foundation includes studying at Pomona College and UC Irvine under mentors like Brian Stonehill and Marie Cartier.
Right.
But alongside all that digital and academic rigor, she spent a full year as a Seattle Parks and Recreation Busker Fellow.
Playing solo guitar in public.
Yeah.
That contrast is so essential to the philosophy of the book. You have a creator who understands the nascent architecture of the internet from his early commercial days, but who also intimately understands the physical reality of standing alone in a public park with just vocals and an acoustic guitar. Solo busking is perhaps the ultimate analog interface. It requires absolute presence, absolute vulnerability.
So how does that fusion, that digital expertise mixed with analog vulnerability, how does that manifest in the text itself? The press release calls the book a love letter to robotics.
It manifests through this concept the text refers to as a spirit tech interface.
A spirit tech interface.
Yeah. In a lot of our current discourse, technology is feared. It's seen as a replacement for humanity, a system designed to automate us out of existence.
Right, the AI boom anxiety.
Yeah, exactly. But this novella frames technology differently. A spirit tech interface suggests that building and interacting with technology can be a grounding, tactile practice meant to empower the human spirit.
Wow.
It explores finding a harmonious frequency between the physical requirements of analog survival and the utility of digital tools.
Let's transition to the setting where this philosophy is actually put to the test. Because the story takes place in Io, California, during a period referred to as the timeless time.
The timeless time.
Yeah, it's described as this hollowed-out near-future dystopia where just everything is stalled. What does daily life even look like for the residents of Io in this environment?
It's defined by an overwhelming sense of gridlock and surveillance. The economy is sustained by what the text calls jobless jobs.
Jobless jobs.
Yeah, roles that just keep people occupied and monitored without providing genuine forward momentum or purpose. It's busy work to keep you visible.
That sounds exhausting.
It is, and the surveillance is constant and systemic. Even simple outdoor activities are heavily regulated.
Like the jogging.
Yes, going for a jog requires strict pacing, maintaining masks, and actively avoiding the gaze of so-called helpful neighbors.
Because they function as unofficial informants for the state.
Precisely.
You know, it really makes you think back. I'd ask you listening right now to remember your own feelings of isolation during those global pauses we all went through. It makes this dystopian setting feel so intimately relatable. It sounds like an environment where genuine connection would be nearly impossible to maintain.
It is.
And the sources mention that authenticity has become the highest priced commodity in this society.
Because when human interaction is heavily policed and physical proximity is treated as a systemic risk, genuine, unmonitored connection becomes dangerously scarce.
Right.
Therefore, authenticity becomes incredibly valuable. It's a world where everyone is operating under a layer of performative compliance just to survive the day-to-day bureaucracy.
And trapped right in the center of this environment is our protagonist, a coder who goes by the name they/them.
Yes.
The text notes that they/them possesses the technical skills to build and create, but they are entirely frozen in survival mode. They're emotionally disabled and functionally cut off from the world around them.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the narrative structure brilliantly uses the setting of Io, California, to reflect the protagonist's internal state.
Oh, I see.
The external stasis of the timeless time, the societal gridlock, the curfews, the jobless jobs, it all serves as a direct mirror to the internal emotional stasis they/them is experiencing.
So they're frozen on multiple levels.
Exactly. The protagonist is frozen, not just by the societal rules of the post-pandemic world, but by the devastating effects of severe trauma.
And that brings us to the source of that trauma, the antagonist of the narrative.
Hurricane Zoe.
Yes, the sources introduce this ex-partner referred to as Hurricane Zoe. And she is described as a wealthy women's healthcare practitioner. What is her methodology for exerting control over they/them?
Zoe's methodology relies heavily on compartmentalization and psychological disorientation.
How so?
Because she operates in a higher echelon of society, specifically within the healthcare sector, her cruelty is quiet, it's systemic, and it's easily masked by her professional veneer.
People trust her by default.
Exactly. And she utilizes word salad, which is a well-documented manipulative tactic.
Right, where the abuser deploys a barrage of confusing, contradictory language.
Yes. The goal is to keep the victim exhausted, constantly second-guessing their own reality and perpetually off balance. She actually tells they/them, I'm keeping you away from everyone that's important to me.
Which is terrifying.
It functions as both a warning and a stated objective to isolate the protagonist entirely.
And the text goes into some deeply unsettling details about how Zoe exerts control physically, too, specifically regarding sleep.
This part is chilling.
Because as a healthcare practitioner, she intimately understands physiology. How does she weaponize that knowledge?
The mechanics of the sleep abuse are highly specific. Zoe would intentionally pin they/them's arm or hand down within the wrought iron lacing of their bed.
Oh my God.
She would use her body weight to cut off their circulation while they slept, so they/them would wake up in an absolute panic with a completely numb, deadened limb.
That is horrifying.
And then Zoe would frame this action as an unconscious habit, claiming it was merely something she did in her sleep.
Blaming it on being asleep so she can't be held accountable.
Exactly. It allowed her to mask the profound cruelty of the physical manipulation behind a facade of innocence. She used her knowledge of the body to inflict harm without leaving obvious marks.
And the compounding effect of that physical and psychological manipulation forces a drastic trauma response from they/them. The notes describe the protagonist's memory literally beginning to split.
Yes, leading to a state of being disembodied.
What does that disembodiment look like in their daily life?
Well, to survive the constant, subtle attacks from someone who was supposed to be a source of love and stability, them's brain essentially initiates a defensive shutdown.
A survival mechanism.
Right. They intentionally begin to forget things. They actually lose their photographic memory.
Wow.
They forget faces, they forget important dates, and they actively avoid looking at specific cars just to bypass the triggers that bring the pain of the abuse rushing back.
Just shrinking their world down.
Completely. They numb their extremities and essentially disable their own emotional capacity just to endure the sheer weight of Zoe's influence.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, though. Ram reaches a point where they decide to fight back against this emotional erasure.
Yes, the turning point.
But in the isolated dystopian environment of the timeless time, traditional avenues for help are non-existent. You can't just go to therapy. So they decide to turn to technology and apply for an emotional support robot, or an ESR.
But getting an ESR in IO, California is not a matter of simply purchasing a device online.
Of course not.
It requires navigating this labyrinthine bureaucratic system designed to exhaust the applicant.
The text introduces the Office of Robotic Solutions, and the description of this government entity leans heavily into dark, dystopian comedy.
Very dark.
How does the intake process function when they/them arrives at this office?
The intake process is just a masterclass in bureaucratic apathy. Upon entering, they/them is greeted by a sterile, looping gif of a tin can robot with soulless metal eyes waving continuously.
So unwelcoming.
And the intake is handled by an exasperated government worker named Chuck. Chuck asks these invasive, absurd questions that prioritize data collection over human welfare. He demands their emotional security number.
Emotional security number, wow.
He interrogates whether the robot is intended for emotional support or sensual support, and he even threatens to issue fines over pronoun usage.
It's a system designed to humiliate and quantify the applicant's trauma.
Exactly.
And while they/them is waiting for their application to be processed, the office directs them to a merch store, which just highlights the purely transactional nature of the society.
Right. The merch store operates as a required checkpoint in the process. While waiting to see if they qualify for life-saving emotional support, they/them is forced into a gift shop where they are actively stalked by a personal shopper.
That is so creepy.
The text highlights the sound of the shopper's heels clicking directly behind them, just waiting for a commission. And because they/them lacks cash, they are forced to buy a tiny tin can robot toy on credit, simply to prove they are a compliant, transactional citizen within the system. It's just endless hoops. And that brings us to the most brutal bureaucratic rule of all, the catch-22 of healing in this society. If an applicant is actually approved for an ESR designed specifically for heartbreak, what are the design mandates from the state?
This is where the dystopia really hits. The state mandates that an ESR requested for heartbreak must be custom-built to look exactly like the applicant's most recent ex.
So it has to look like Zoe.
Yes.
Ah.
The systemic logic claims that the individual must face their trauma directly to overcome it.
But for a victim of severe narcissistic abuse like they/them, having a robot with Zoe's face in their home would just perpetuate the trauma loop. It would reinforce the visual trigger of the abuse every single day.
Precisely. It is a mandate that effectively keeps the victim trapped in their stasis. They/them recognizes this and decides to rebel against the system. They want to rewrite the narrative and engineer a companion who will speak the truths that a narcissist like Zoe never could.
And to accomplish this illegal pivot, they/them has to rely on mutual aid from a small supporting cast, their family of choice found in the margins of IO.
Tell me about Tyrone and Lenny and how they facilitate this rebellion.
Tyrone is introduced as a brother in spirit. He is a fellow survivor who briefly ends up working for Zoe. And true to Zoe's absurd cruelty, Tyrone is unceremoniously kicked out onto the street over missing Himalayan crystal salt rocks.
Just petty, wealthy cruelty.
Exactly. This forces a collision between his world and they/them's, as Tyrone ends up crashing with the protagonist. But the true catalyst for the physical build of the robot is Lenny.
Lenny operates a local health food cart. The text notes that they/them practically survives off of a grade school diet of avocados and saltines provided by Lenny's cart. How does Lenny become they/them's North Star?
Lenny represents the absolute antithesis of Zoe. Where Zoe is extractive, manipulative, and disorienting, Lenny is genuinely benevolent and quietly observant.
She actually sees them.
Yes. She notices they/them's anxious pacing. She saves their favorite food. She even offers to pay for their meals out of pocket when they/them is struggling. Lenny offers tangible relief and stability in a world defined by disruption.
And she has access to parts.
Right. Eventually, recognizing they-them's need, Lenny reveals that she has access to a secret kit of scavenged robot parts.
That mutual aid is what allows they-them to bypass the state's mandate entirely.
Huh.
Instead of using Zoe's face, they-them illegally asks Lenny for a selfie.
A huge risk.
Huge risk. They decide to imprint the robot, which they tentatively name Birdsong, with Lenny's image, hoping the device will reflect her kindness and her soft gaze.
Thematically, this decision is the core of the novella. They-them actively rejects the image of their abuser.
Yes.
The entire process of building Birdsong, drawing the schematics, sourcing the scavenged parts, piecing together the actuators, wiring the hardware, it all serves as a powerful tactile metaphor. The physical act of building an analog robot from scrap is the protagonist painstakingly rebuilding their own mind and spirit.
It brings life to the central philosophy stated in the text. Analog and hardware may break. Your soul is the software ever enduring.
The idea that the soul is the software elevates the act of creation here. Every wire connected and every line of code written is a physical manifestation of them reclaiming their agency from the stasis of abuse.
They aren't just building a machine.
No, they are reconstructing their own capacity for love, connection, and trust through that spirit-tech interface we talked about earlier.
The concept that we can act as the coders of our own reality, patching the bugs left by trauma and writing new programs for our future, is incredibly compelling.
It really is.
And as a reminder to you listening, this has been a completely spoiler-free deep dive. We've explored the foundations of the text, but we're leaving the plot's resolution and the subsequent independent awakening of Robot Beta entirely for you to discover in the pages themselves.
Because there's a vast amount of texture to experience in the text. The specific cadence of the writing, which captures that unedited 2020 audio serialization, offers a reading experience that bridges the gap between a spoken word archive and literary fiction.
You really can experience this original human transmission for yourself. The first edition of My Beautiful Device, Volume 1, Stasis by Gian de Monique, is officially out today, March 4th, 2026.
You can secure your copy on the Smashwords author page by navigating to books2read.com/mybeautifuldevice.
And the sources confirm that a second edition is actually already in production. You can also connect directly with the author on Instagram at the handle @GianDeMonique.
This raises an important question, one that the novella challenges the reader to consider long after the final page.
What's that?
If our minds are indeed the ultimate software, and the coping mechanisms we build to survive the world are our internal devices, how are we programming them?
Oh, it's good.
Are we unwittingly allowing our devices to run on the toxic, looping code of the people who have caused us harm? Or are we undertaking the radical, difficult work of building our internal hardware using the blueprints of those who actually show us grace?
Are we letting the Hurricane Zoes of the world write our source code, or are we looking toward our North Stars?
That's the question.
I want to warmly thank you for joining us on this deep dive today. You are now well-informed, primed, and absolutely ready to explore the world of My Beautiful Device on your own. Keep your analog hearts beating, keep your software updated, and we will catch you next time.